You're listening to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, the show that proves no one stumbles upon success ever. With your host, Lou Need. Every Mondays and Thursdays, we deliver cold hard evidence behind the power of a robust morning routine. Get ready to be transformed by the renewal of your mind.
Good morning, enthusiasts. Welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. Today, I have the privilege and honor of welcoming a special guest to the show, and introducing right now Jackie Harounian. Jackie is a leader in matrimonial family law with over 20 years as a trial attorney, mediator, and victims advocate. Her multitude of cases include domestic violence, mental health issues, personality disorders, substance addiction, and religious divorces. Jackie is a partner at her family firm. She is a noted speaker, educator, and a writer. Jackie, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Lou, for inviting me. I'm very happy to be part of your podcast.
Yeah, thank you for being on board. I'm really excited to have you here. Let's go over the topics that we will cover today. We will look at trends in family law. What are some changes over the years? We will look at women breadwinners, like Mr. Moms, and then we'll look at negotiation skills as it apply in the courtroom and outside the courtroom.
That sounds great.
Tell us a little something about the firm.
Yes. So as you mentioned, and thank you very much for that intro, I've been practicing family law in New York for a very long time, for almost 25 years. And during that time, there has been a lot of changes in the law that have finally come around to reflect what is going on in society. And especially in the past 10 years, New York has had very significant changes that have made the law more gender neutral, a little bit more fair, a little bit less focused on grounds and the wrongdoing in the marriage, and more focused on support laws that reward the breadwinner and the harder working spouse. And so most of the laws are not in favor of the stay-at-home primary caretaker. They are more allowing the breadwinner, the harder working spouse, the more educated spouse to leave with more assets. And these are consistent with trends that are going on all over the country, and are reflective of the fact that both men and women are now more educated. There are many more families that have two working parents, children that are in childcare. And so the laws are more reflective of that, with joint custody, with parents, both that are raising children and both that are working to support the household. I would say probably 1 out of 4 clients that walk into my office are female breadwinners, that are women that have more education and are earning more than their spouses. This is a very big change. This is something that probably in the last 10 years I have seen more and more of. That's
fantastic, because the old traditional way of doing things has shifted, and I'm glad the law is changing to reflect that.
That's correct. Yes.
Tell us about the what is the effect of women breadwinners as Mr. Moms on marriage and relationship, and how it affects the kids?
Sure. So I live, and my practice is in Great Neck, which is in Nassau County. It's a suburb right outside Manhattan. And it's an area where it's a very nice area, but it's an area where the expenses are very high. There are very, very good public schools in most parts of my county, but most households have 2 working parents. And this is something that's reflective of what's going on all over the country. In many, many areas, you have 2 working parents. And what happened is, about 10 years ago, after the last major economic recession, a lot of women were able to go back to work. A lot of men lost their jobs. We had a lot of situations where men were spending more time with their children, being much more active in picking up and dropping off their children from daycare or activities. And just in general, over the past 10 or 20 years, we see that men have gained ground in the domestic sphere, being more active fathers, just as we see women that are gaining ground in the professional sphere, earning higher salaries. There's still obviously a pay disparity between what men and women earn, but women, many women are advancing, are making up half of law school graduating classes and half of medical school graduating classes. And all along the way, you see women are making advances, and their salaries are reflecting that.
Yeah, that's nice to see too. And I like what you said. Men are also picking up the slack and also becoming Mr. Moms as well in the household, and they're contributing
Right.
in that sense. They're providing the care that the kids get. It's not just coming from one person now. It's
Right.
it's very involved. The family life is very more engaging.
Yeah, no, definitely. From a generation ago, I think many fathers want to spend more time with their children. They're more involved in their children's upbringing, coaching teams, doing homework, cooking. These are very different shift in values in a lot of households. I'm really making a lot of generalizations. There are definitely households where things are still much more traditional, where there are more prescribed gender roles. But in the average family that I see, when I look at my caseload, and we have a large firm with a very big caseload, we have 9 attorneys. And so we have all different types of cases, all different types of socioeconomic groups. But there is a consistency of what's changing in a lot of households in the suburbs in New York.
Yeah. And how do you see that affecting divorce rate? Because it's a high divorce rate, but with this shift in modern era, how does that affect? Do you see the decrease?
Yeah, so I do a lot of speaking. Actually, just earlier this evening, I was doing a teaching event for social workers. I do a lot of public speaking and writing about the divorce rate and different trends in society. And there's actually a lot of information out there about this topic, which I find very interesting, and maybe your listeners will find interesting. So overall, the divorce rate is actually dropping. And it's dropping into the 40% range, which is quite low, given that maybe 20 or 30 years ago, the divorce rate was much higher, maybe as high as 60 or 70%. What's happening now is millennials actually are marrying later. They're choosing a little bit more wisely in terms of settling down with a spouse.
Mm-hmm.
And the millennial rate of divorce is much lower than previous generations. So the divorce rate is holding steady at around 40%, but the marriage rate is also going down. There's more cohabitation out there. There's still, divorce is still very much a risk for a lot of marriages.
Oh, I see.
But when people marry later with more education, generally with a little bit more financial stability, those marriages have a better shot at making it. So that's a positive trend.
That is, yeah. I was going to say that the shift could be because millennials are cohabitating or that they are not getting married any sooner. But you're saying you actually do see a positive correlation for those who are married due to this new engagement and Mr. Moms and mothers being breadwinners and the effect that it has on the family unit.
Yes, that's right. And people in general, another trend is prenuptial agreements, postnuptial agreements, because people are marrying a little bit later. And because there's really more of an acceptance of doing financial agreements almost as a form of divorce insurance, people are much more willing to sign them, to negotiate them. There's more communication between couples about their finances, about their assets and their debts. So this is also a very good thing. And in general, most matrimonial lawyers are recommending postnuptial agreements and prenuptial agreements. As a matter of fact, I know you live in California. I just negotiated a postnuptial agreement for a couple that lives in California. I was representing one of the parties. They were planning to live in New York. And I'm doing more and more of them. I mean, this is something that just shows that people want to reduce the risk of divorce. Mm-hmm. They want to, hedge their bets and manage their risk. And this is definitely not a bad thing if it makes people more comfortable.
With all that put in place, do you see the reasons for divorce changing? Because you would say, 20, 30 years ago, even 50 years ago, a lot of the reasons for divorce was either abuse, financial problems. And now with this new awareness and people are deciding right up front how they want their money split, do you see a new reason for divorce?
There's lots of reasons why people get divorced. Obviously, relationships have challenges, and when parties don't know how to resolve conflict, that almost always leads to a breakdown in communication and then a divorce. We have a lot more seniors applying for divorce now. It's called the so-called gray divorce, because ever since they passed no-fault divorce laws, seniors and older generations, they're more comfortable in filing for divorce. People have blamed Viagra for divorce because, sometimes there's a mismatch in the bedroom, the availability of Viagra, longer lifespans. People feel I'm not going to stay in a relationship that's unfulfilling, or when, their people are not communicating well. And economic freedom is another reason why a lot of women file for divorce. A lot of them are now earning money, or they feel they can go out and earn a living, get education, try a second career. And women are just more comfortable now filing for divorce. The stigma is going away because of no-fault divorce. And there are lots of reasons why people file. But there's some little trends going on right now because of just different opportunities that are out there for women, and also because seniors seem to be more willing to file.
Yeah, and women they're realizing they make enough money to be able to sustain the family on one income versus the need to have both in the house at the moment. But it has its flaw because the child is without a father temporarily, and that can has its effect. Because I know you have cases with mental health issues as well, and personality disorders, and that can actually be detrimental to the child development as well.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, children, though, because in most cases, some form of joint custody is going to be offered to the parties. Children do learn to adapt to living in two different households. People have different feelings about whether that really serves children or not. If the alternative is living in a household where there's violence or a lot of conflict, probably separating and living in two households is a better alternative. Ultimately, divorce does impact children. I mean, there's no question about it. And in my office, I emphasize mediation, out-of-court processes, really try very hard to reduce the discord and de-escalate issues. And myself, I have a background in psychology. I have a graduate degree in behavioral forensics. And that's something that's unique about my approach to cases. I really think resolving psychological issues, conflict, dealing with issues that need to be addressed in therapy or with medication or treatment. These are very, very important. And divorce, a lot of times you see individuals and families that are in crisis. Sometimes it is because of mental illness, sometimes because of substance abuse. A lot of times it's because of financial secrets or infidelity, all kinds of things that really create a crisis in the family, in the couple. And they have options. They can try to seek therapy, treatment, stay married, and sometimes the only route is to separate. And parents have choices to make. They don't have to have a high conflict situation. They can try to seek out of court or more friendly processes to divorce, because the divorce process is very stressful in and of itself. It creates mental health issues in and of itself, including depression and anxiety, and it's very expensive. Most people can't really afford it.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to keep that in mind. I mean, really starting a protracted legal battle, especially one that involves children, it's very, very damaging. And people really need to be careful before they set down on that path. The lawyer you choose makes a very big difference in how the process unfolds.
It's not just to the kids that it's fatal or detrimental. It's because the parents as well. They're dealing with the anxiety and the stress that overwhelming.
Yep.
Having to deal and keeping communication here would be crucial. Open communication, even involving the kids in the process, letting them know, because they're not silly, right? They know that what's going on. They know they're in a happy home. They know, they see the bickering. They see the cold shoulders. They see the silent treatments, and they're smart enough to realize that something's wrong. But then they start acting out in the classroom. They become more shy. They become more quiet. They lose the confidence. They're not engaging in the classroom, and then it's just a domino effect. And I think open communication will actually alleviate a lot of the burden.
I mean, that's really true. I mean, there's always an intense emotional period after a breakup between adults. There's always going to be some fallout. But in most cases, it's temporary. Life moves forward. People adjust to the changes. And children often are resilient and they can cope and adjust as well. Parents need to remember that they chose one another. They decided together to bring a child into the world. In most cases, it was a relationship that brought joy to them for some period of time, or even the birth of the child was a happy event. They have to remember that when they're going through a divorce, that their child did not ask to be put in the middle of a conflict. The parents have a very large role in reducing that conflict. And ultimately, they have to remember that they caused the situation. The blame almost always is shared between both parties, and they're part of the solution as well. They have to take steps to resolve the conflict, make decisions, split up assets, and move forward. And to stay in that conflict and make it worse and escalate it and drag their children into the middle of it, they're going to pay a price for it later on. There's always a price to be paid.
Really love your approach, because you, as a psychologist with a psychology background, you see the holistic approach to what you do and helping the family as a unit, because you are able to tap into the mental, the psyche, as well as the law. And that's rare.
Yeah. Well, family law, I'm not a psychologist. As I mentioned, I have a degree in counseling, a graduate degree. And most lawyers really get a lot of on-the-job training for psychology. I just learned all of the psychological underpinnings when I got my degree, and it really is very helpful in my practice, especially when I do mediation, because mediation really is a friendly process. It tends to attract people that are willing to at least consider resolving disputes without a lot of acrimony. And it's very rewarding for me to see that people are willing to set their differences aside and find a middle ground. Because most cases, the economics of it are really quite simple. Most people that I represent, even the ones that have some savings, dividing up assets is not terribly complicated. And in general, even calculating support is, there are guidelines, there are formulas. Again, not very complicated. It's the people that make it complicated. It's the anger.
Yeah.
It's mostly unresolved anger that makes it complicated.
Emotional beings we are. Yeah. We make everything complicated. When emotions stirs up, we don't forget logic. That's who we are.
That's exactly right.
I love that you do religious divorce, because I come from a very religious background where divorce is taboo. You don't get divorced. You, under God, you went and in front of the church and you said till death do you part. So it is till death do you part. And I've seen relationships where there is abuse in the home, abuse, physical abuse, mental, emotional abuse, all that goes on, and just simply unhappy, cheating, and all that bluntly. But they won't do it because I call it buying face, but it's a religious anchor.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is something that's common to every religion. I have clients from all backgrounds, whether they're Orthodox Jewish or Muslim or Christian, or even Hindu or Asian cultures. Different religion. The more religious people are, the more of a stigma it is to get divorced. And what happens is, in those very traditional, very religious communities, people will stay in relationships that are unhealthy and even abusive. And that has its own set of challenges. The religious divorce practice, though, has to do with different religious ceremonies that have to take place to really end the marriage. And in my area, there's a very big community of religious, traditional Orthodox Jewish people. And I also have a lot of Muslim clients that come to me because I have an understanding of Islamic marriage contracts. And I also have an understanding of Jewish divorce and it's called the Jewish get. Mm-hmm. These cases have very specific challenges that are unique to those communities where there is a religious component. They're going to have a rabbi or an imam or some central figure that is going to be part of the negotiations to resolve all of the issues and ultimately cooperate in finalizing both the civil divorce and a religious divorce. And I myself have a Middle Eastern background. I understand the community extremely well. And I respect it too. I have no issue with traditional religious values. I think a lot of marriages benefit from it. And certainly, I'm married myself. I'm married a very long time. I do think divorce should be a last resort for many people, especially if there are children. When there's domestic violence or there are features that are unhealthy and damaging, those marriages, those relationships cannot continue. It is just too harmful to not only the victim, which is almost always the mother, it's harmful to children. It's not good for them to see relationships that are destructive and layering religion on top and making it harder to leave the marriage. It really almost makes it worse. Those are tricky cases. Sometimes you just need to get community involvement. You need to get religious leaders involved to try to get everyone to cooperate.
Right. Well, you mentioned a Middle Eastern background. What is your background?
Yeah, my parents are from Iran. They're immigrants to this country in the late 1950s. So I was born here, but my parents are Iranian.
Okay, and you went through the whole ceremony as well, because it's traditional.
Yeah, no. I definitely had a religious, traditional upbringing. And like I said, I understand it. I think some of those values are going back thousands of years. There's a lot of beautiful ceremonies that go along with weddings and marriage and the births of children, and similar in the Christian faith or Muslim faith, or all of these very religious, traditional customs. They have a lot in common as well. They're really very family based, and these are all features of what are called collectivist cultures,
right,
where you put the needs of the community ahead of the need of the individual. In the United States, in America, in a lot of Western cultures, it's individualist. I mean, the rights of the individual are really more important than anything else. I was not raised with that idea. Mm-hmm. I was raised with the sense of community, and so I certainly understand it. Yeah, I certainly understand that mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. So if it does ever come to divorce, what are the negotiation tactics that you've applied?
Yeah, so I do a lot of coaching and speaking regarding negotiation skills and assertiveness training. And the most important thing in any negotiation is that, and men are better at this than women, and I'm always telling women they need to brush up on this, is to really have a rational mind and not lead with an emotional mind. You have to have a full understanding of all of the facts and figures. And if getting a good financial settlement is important, and it should be important, you have to understand what all of the bottom line numbers are. You have to be very prepared, and you have to be willing to be patient and assertive and back up your position with documents and research in order to persuade the other side. When people are angry or emotional, they make mistakes in negotiation. People that are able to sit down prepared with the information they need, moving forward logically, and willing to make concessions when necessary by prioritizing the issues or the assets that are most important. Those types of negotiations are often successful. But managing emotion is a key factor.
Yeah, and that's applicable in businesses and in getting a promotion, in an interview. Everywhere you go is to actually leave behind that emotional mind and put on this logical, reasonable mind. Correct. And bring in your facts, bringing the things that will help sell your case.
That's correct. And always leaving space for a response, being respectful in all of the discussions, always leaving that door open for future discussions, because sometimes you're not going to be successful in one sitting, but you don't want to burn the bridge and say, well, this is over and let's go to trial. The idea is we weren't able to resolve every issue. Maybe we resolved something. Why don't we get back to one another and provide information? Keep that dialogue open and keep the conversation moving, because sometimes with the passage of time, you will find that you have a partner in a peacemaking process.
Mm-hmm. And it's good to end it to be amicable as well, for the sake of the children.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I always coach my clients not only to always just take the high road, to set an example, to try to be civilized. But always remember that you're always going to be a family. Even after a divorce, you really are always part of the other parent's life. There are going to be future events, soccer games and graduations and birthday parties. And you have to remember, you're going to have to be in that room, standing together in good times and bad. And you don't want to create an enemy. You really want to forgive and move forward. And always remember that you're part of each other's lives in some way.
Yeah. And I know self-care is crucial during that process to actually.
Absolutely.
Mindfulness is crucial. Working out is crucial just so you are at your best, because you are under severe stress. So is everyone involved.
It is very stressful. I mean, just the uncertainty of the outcome, the cost of the lawyers, the court date, all of the responsibilities to produce documents. And it is extremely stressful. And even the most even-keeled person can fall apart in the middle of it. So yes, I would agree. Self-care is very important, and making compromises and making a decision that you're going to make this end, you're going to resolve it, that you have a future out there waiting for you, someone new in your life or a new job or a new opportunity. You got to close one chapter so you can get to the next. To stay in a toxic process, because that's really what it is. It's toxic. It is not healthy.
Right.
And really the best way is just to get through it and move forward. And most of my clients are able to do that. And I'm very fortunate to have a lot of referrals from colleagues and former clients that really appreciate that my goal is to have the process end with a very good outcome, if possible, and in a way that's amicable with their ex. I mean, that really is something I try to emphasize in every case.
Mm-hmm.
And most of my clients, not all, but most of them understand that really is in their best interests.
So you have your plate full on a daily basis because you are feeding these families, right? You're feeding into their lives. You're helping them restructure their whole family unit. And how do you get fed? How do you replenish? How do you get ready on a daily basis to dress up and show up in the people's lives and serve the way that you do?
Yeah. Well, I'm fortunate to be in a field of law, in a career that I really am still passionate about, even after all these years. I consider it really a privilege to do what I do. I have a lot of amazing opportunities for speaking and writing and working with clients and leading a great team of attorneys and professionals at my firm. And I've been with the same firm for almost 25 years, which is really, it's extraordinarily lucky that I'm in this position. So that recharges me and energizes me just to be among coworkers that I really respect and admire and really serve people. And it's I have to say I make a very nice living doing it too. So that helps. I recharge myself on weekends. I'm married. I have 4 children. I spend a lot of time with them. I really do try to meditate. I really do try to have downtime so that I can just sort of recharge myself so that I can have the energy to go back to work every Monday. And it works. It works.
Yeah, meditation and mindfulness, quiet the mind so you could recalibrate.
Yes, absolutely. And spending time with family and appreciation for the relationships that I do have. Always trying to work on improving them if I can. And, we live in a very fast-paced world. We really do. I mean, all of us have to deal with that. The fact that things are now coming so quickly and there's very little time to really connect to ourselves and to important relationships. And it's very important that we all try to do that, even if the most important relationship is to ourselves, or to a pet, or to a family member. Those are the most important things. And I do try to remind myself of that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you do great work. How can we connect with you?
So I'm very easy to find on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I interact a lot with clients and colleagues on social media. My law firm phone number, in case anyone's listening and wants to take it down, is 516-773-8300. And my website, which has a lot of information, not only about me and my coworkers, but also about family law in general. There's a ton of information on our website. and it's lawjaw.com, LAWJAW.com.
Fantastic. Morning enthusiasts, you heard it here first. This was Jackie, and she really talks about the importance of the relationship in the marriage and the shift that has taken place over the years with family and divorce law. And it's in the favor of, it's gender neutral. And it's in the favor of who can take care of the kids who there is no traditional way of doing things anymore. And it's fascinating to hear. For negotiation skills, leave your emotions at the door. Bring the rational mind with you and be calm and poised and be confident with bringing your facts forward. I really, really appreciate you coming on the show, Jackie. Thank you so much for the knowledge and sharing with my audience.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate. And I will definitely be checking out some more of your podcasts. I really was inspired speaking to you.
Oh,
thank you, Liz.
Fantastic. Thank you for saying that.
All right, morning enthusiasts, that's it for today's show. Thank you for tuning in. If you love the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, we'd love to hear from you. So go ahead and subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes or Google Play. While you're at it, tell a friend about the show. Be sure to visit bestmorningroutineever.com and our Facebook group to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our fantastic free bonus content. Until next time,